The Blue Engine. A long time ago, before Henry and Gordon arrived on the island, there was only 3 engines running the main line: Edward, Albert, and Harrison. Edward was in charge of the express, while the other 2 were in charge of mixed traffic work. With only the 3 of them, they were exhausted. The Fat Controller could see this, and decided to get another engine. He started to look for another one. "An Atlantic is what I want," he said. Edward arrived at Vicarstown one day with the express. When he went to the roundhouse to turn around, he stopped on a turntable. There was an engine sitting in the shed. He was rather tall and lean, and painted NWR passenger blue. "Would you like to be my friend?" he asked rather quietly. Edward was surprised. Nobody had said anything about the new engine arriving. Had the Fat Controller bought a new engine in secret? "I'm Edward," he said. "Jay," the engine replied. "Jay? Jay as in what?" "Jay," was all the engine said further. Edward rallied again. "Have you ever pulled passenger trains?" he asked. Jay smiled widely. "Coaches are not like trucks." Every wise engine knows this. But Jay was making Edward feel rather uneasy. The other engines met Jay soon enough, and they had similar interactions. "Where did he even come from?" Harrison asked that night in the shed. "He was there when I arrived," Edward told him. "He's rather odd." "I'm kind of unnerved by him, Ed," replied Albert. The 3 engines agreed to keep an eye on him. They had a feeling that if they didn't, something would happen they weren't prepared for. Jay just slept happily. The next day, the Fat Controller finally met Jay. He looked the engine up and down, confused. It was as if he'd never seen this engine before. "Well," he said at last, "I suppose an Atlantic is an Atlantic." Jay smiled more than he already was. Edward, please show him where the express coaches are, and then you can take the local today." "Yes, sir. Come along, Jay." Jay smiled broadly as he followed Edward to the carriage sidings. The carriage sidings are located next to the old Knapford roundhouse. The coaches are kept out of the way there. Edward showed Jay the series of carriages. "The ones with the green stripes are for the express. Reds are for locals, and blues for the limited. And those orange coaches over there, they're for branch line services. And those dark maroon ones are VIP coaches." Jay smiled broadly and backed down onto the green express coaches. "The stops are at Tidmouth, Kildane, Vicarstown, and sometimes you go across the bridge to Barrow." Jay smiled and puffed away without another word. Edward watched from the sidings as he carefully took the train away. When Jay arrived back at the sheds that night, the coaches were shuddering a bit. "A rather odd sort," they said to each other. A couple of days went by, and things seemed to be going all right. "Look, lads, full moon," said Harrison one night in the station. Albert and Edward snickered. "You know what they say," said Albert. "When the full moon's out, things go about." Edward chuckled. "I don't believe that," he said. Harrison and Albert shared a look. "What about Jay?" Albert whispered. Edward didn't know how to respond. Thankfully, he didn't have to. A guard came running into the yard, clearly out of breath. She collapsed against Edward's buffer beam. "Lizzie, what's wrong?" "It's Jay! He crashed into the mine!" The 3 engines collected a breakdown team and quickly hurried to the lead mine. When they arrived, the express coaches were just standing outside of a mine shaft. "Where's Jay?" exclaimed Albert. "He ran into the mine!" stuttered the front coach. A group of men gathered into trucks, and Edward gave them a small shunt. The trucks rolled down into the shaft. The Fat Controller quickly arrived. When the miners walked out, they looked confused and concerned. "How far down is he?" asked the Fat Controller. He's not there, sir." The engines went as white as ghosts. "What do you mean he's not there?" The workers were just as confused as the Fat Controller was. There was seemingly no sign of Jay. Like he had vanished into midair. A massive hunt of the mines were carried out, but Jay wasn't down there. His records remain MIA, missing in action. It should go without saying that last week, when Edward found a tender similar to Gordon's, he felt rather uneasy.